If you are watching this, pause for a moment. Not everyone was meant to hear this message. Most will scroll past it. Most will dismiss it. But you didn't. And that already says something. February 14th, 16 is not just another stretch of days on the calendar. It is a pressure window, a subtle but powerful spiritual checkpoint. Nothing may explode on the outside. There may be no dramatic signs in the sky. But internally, patterns will tighten, emotions will intensify, temptations will become louder, delays will test your patience, opportunities will test your courage. These 3 days will not create a new you. They will reveal the one you truly are. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Revelation is rarely gentle. Some will rise without applause. Some will fall without realizing it. Most won't even notice they were being measured. But you're here now, which means you don't get to say you weren't warned. If you feel a subtle tension reading this, that's not fear. That's awareness, activating. And what happens next depends entirely on how you respond. If you're ready, we begin with the first shift. Chapter 1. The pressure before exposure. The test does not start on February 14th. It starts the moment you become aware that something is coming. You may already feel it, a strange restlessness, a subtle emotional charge beneath ordinary life. Small irritations feel slightly amplified. Thoughts loop louder than usual. Nothing dramatic has happened, yet something feels different. That's not coincidence. When a pressure window approaches, your internal structure tightens. Like atmospheric pressure before a storm, the sky looks clear, but the air feels heavier. Something unseen is gathering around you. February 14th, 16 acts like a magnifier, not of events, but of identity. You won't suddenly face a dramatic, cinematic decision. The real test hides inside ordinary moments, and that's why it's dangerous. You wake up slightly tired. Do you discipline your body or indulge your excuses? You feel misunderstood. Do you react emotionally or pause and observe? You feel the urge to delay something important. Do you postpone or move anyway? These moments seem small, but they are structural. Each micro-decision reinforces who you actually are, not who you claim to be. And here is the twist. The test is subtle, because ego defenses are strong. If the challenge were obvious, you would prepare, you would perform, you would try to pass. But subtle pressure reveals default behavior, and default behavior is truth. These 3 days don't measure intention. They measure consistency under friction. They expose whether your discipline is real or conditional. You might think, nothing significant happened. That is exactly how most people fail. Failure during exposure windows rarely looks dramatic. It looks like small compromises repeated quietly. It looks like reacting when you promised yourself you wouldn't. It looks like choosing comfort after declaring growth. And the danger is this: it feels justified. The mind is brilliant at defending regression. It whispers reasonable excuses. It normalizes delay. It softens standards, slowly, almost invisibly. You are being told this now for one reason. Awareness changes probability. When you know you're inside a measuring moment, your posture shifts, not out of fear, but out of alignment. February 14th, 16 will amplify 3 forces: emotional triggers, temptation toward comfort, and opportunities disguised as inconvenience. Most people will misread the third one. They will see inconvenience and retreat. But what if the inconvenience is the doorway? What if the uncomfortable task is the elevation point? The chosen ones are not those who never struggle. They are the ones who recognize the moment while inside it. You are not being asked to be perfect. You are being asked to be conscious. Exposure windows don't just reveal weakness, they reveal readiness. If you have been preparing silently, strengthening discipline, practicing restraint, these days will feel empowering. But if you've been drifting, postponing growth, numbing discomfort, the same days will feel chaotic. The date does not create the outcome, it exposes the foundation. Imagine two buildings facing the same tremor. One stands firm, one cracks. The tremor is not biased, it reveals structure. February 14th, 16 is that tremor. Small, focused, precise. You might notice old habits resurfacing suddenly, people testing your boundaries, emotional waves without clear cause, unexpected opportunities that require courage now, not later. None of this is random. Pressure reveals pattern. And here is the deeper twist, the part most will never consider. These days are less about what you do, and more about what you tolerate. What do you allow to continue? What standard do you lower when tired? What excuse do you accept when uncomfortable? That tolerance line determines who passes. Passing doesn't mean achieving something visible. It means refusing to betray your higher self when no one else would know. By the time February 16th ends, a subtle lock will engage. Not mystical, not theatrical, structural. Your reinforced patterns will stabilize direction for the coming weeks. And that's why this message matters. Not to create fear, but clarity. The pressure has already begun. The real question isn't whether you will be tested. It's whether you will recognize the test while you're inside it. In the next chapter, we go deeper into what truly separates those who rise from those who quietly repeat. Chapter 2. The separation you won't see. Here is what no one tells you about February 14th, 16. It is not just a test. It is a separation. Not loud, not announced, no sirens, no visible mark placed on anyone's forehead. But a dividing line will move through your life quietly, like a blade made of silence, and you will cross to one side of it without even realizing when it happened. Most people imagine separation as something dramatic, a clear before and after. But real division is subtle. It happens inside reactions, inside tone, inside what you choose when no one is watching. These days are not about proving yourself to the world. They are about revealing yourself to yourself. And once you see who you are under pressure, you cannot unsee it. There is a pattern that activates during exposure windows. Opportunities will arrive disguised as inconvenience. Delays will appear right before progress. People may misunderstand you at the exact moment you try to grow. Emotionally, it may feel like resistance has increased. But resistance is not punishment. Resistance is measurement. Here is the twist. The higher your potential, the sharper the resistance. Not because you are targeted, but because expansion creates friction. And friction reveals structure. Weak structures crack. Stable structures refine. February 14-16 is not asking whether you want more. It is asking whether you can handle more without collapsing into old habits. You may feel the urge to retreat, to postpone, to say, "I'll deal with this next week." That impulse is the threshold. The line between those who pass and those who repeat is often one uncomfortable action taken immediately. A hard conversation initiated instead of avoided. A disciplined choice made instead of a soothing one. A boundary held instead of softened. And here is where the separation becomes real. If you override your higher standard once, the mind quickly negotiates a second compromise. Then, a third. Each compromise makes the next one easier. Momentum forms, downward or upward. By February 16th, a direction will have solidified, not visibly, but internally. And internal direction determines external outcome weeks later. Most people won't connect the dots. They'll say, nothing happened. But in March or April, when stagnation appears, they won't realize the root was mid-February. The exposure window doesn't create destiny. it accelerates trajectory. And acceleration amplifies whatever direction you're already leaning toward. Now here is the deeper layer. During these 3 days, you will experience a mirror moment, a situation that reflects your current level with uncomfortable precision. It may come through criticism, through rejection, through unexpected responsibility, through silence from someone you expected validation from. That mirror will feel unfair, but it is accurate. The instinct will be to defend your identity, to protect the image you hold of yourself. But passing requires something harder: adjustment instead of defense, growth instead of justification. The chosen ones are not those who avoid being triggered. They are the ones who use the trigger as information. And this is where many quietly fail. They interpret discomfort as attack. They interpret delay as denial. They interpret silence as rejection. So they withdraw emotionally. They shrink. They lower effort. They convince themselves it's not worth it. And the separation finalizes, not because they were unworthy, but because they chose contraction over expansion. You, however, are being warned before the moment arrives. If something feels heavier than usual during February 14th, 16, don't assume it's random. Ask, what is this trying to refine? If someone challenges you, ask, where am I still unstable? If an opportunity feels intimidating, ask, is this the level I've been asking for? Because here is the truth most won't admit. Everyone wants elevation. Few want exposure. Elevation without exposure is fantasy. Exposure without defense is transformation. And then comes the final twist. The separation is not between good and bad. It is between aligned and misaligned, between disciplined and drifting, between those who act despite discomfort and those who wait for comfort before acting. One group will feel clearer after February 16th, even if nothing external changes. The other group will feel slightly heavier, slightly confused, slightly delayed, without knowing why. That subtle difference compounds. By the time the next opportunity cycle opens, one group will step into it with readiness. The other will hesitate. And hesitation in key windows closes doors quietly. The question is not whether you will feel pressure. You will. The question is whether you interpret the pressure as proof you should stop, or proof you are being strengthened. February 14th, 16 will not label you. It will reveal you. And once revealed, you will stand at a deeper threshold, one that determines not just who passes this window, but who you become in the months ahead. In the final chapter, we go to the point of no return, what locks in after the 16th, and why some people will sense a door closing while others feel one opening. Chapter 3. The lock that clicks after midnight. There is a moment after February 16th that no calendar marks. No sound announces it. No light flashes in the sky, but something settles. It feels like a quiet click inside your chest. Not dramatic, not emotional, structural. Because once a pattern repeats under pressure, the brain wires it deeper. Once you choose expansion despite discomfort, confidence stabilizes. Once you choose avoidance despite knowing better, hesitation strengthens. And after 3 concentrated days of amplified exposure, whichever direction you lean toward, hardens. This is the lock. Not mystical fate, not divine punishment. Alignment crystallized into momentum. Most people misunderstand how destiny forms. They imagine one massive decision changes everything. In reality, destiny forms when small decisions repeat under emotional charge. February 14th, 16 carries charge, which means your responses during these days imprint stronger. If you moved when you didn't feel ready, if you spoke when silence was safer, if you held your boundary when pleasing was easier, you will feel it afterward. Not fireworks, not applause, clarity, a subtle internal steadiness. Less negotiation in your thoughts, less inner debate. That is what passing feels like. But if you postponed, if you justified regression, if you reacted instead of responded, you will also feel something, a slight heaviness, an unexplained irritation, a sense that something slipped, even if you can't name what. That is not guilt. That is misalignment settling. Here is the twist no one expects. The lock does not trap you forever. It simply determines your starting altitude for the next cycle. Pass, and you begin higher. Drift, and you repeat the lesson at a lower vibration until it's mastered. And repetition is expensive, because the next time the test comes, the stakes will be higher. You might be thinking, so what exactly determines passing? It is not perfection, it is correction speed. The chosen ones are not those who never slip. They are those who catch themselves quickly, who adjust mid-pattern, who interrupt the downward spiral before it stabilizes. During these 3 days, you will likely experience one defining moment. It may look small from the outside. A message you almost didn't send. A task you almost avoided. A reaction you almost indulged. The separation happens in the almost. Most will fall into it. You are being trained to recognize it, because here is the deeper layer, and this is where it becomes uncomfortable. February 14th, 16 is not about God judging you. It is about you confronting the version of yourself you secretly tolerate. We all claim higher standards. But what do you actually enforce when tired, when emotional, when misunderstood? That is the real identity. And identity compounds. After the 16th, you may notice something subtle in your environment. People responding differently, energy shifting, conversations aligning or dissolving. This is not superstition. When internal posture changes, external interactions reorganize. If you passed, doors will not burst open dramatically, but you will notice smoother timing, cleaner communication, less resistance in small things. If you drifted, delays will feel sticky, effort will feel heavier. Not because the world turned against you, but because internal inconsistency leaks into execution. Here is the part that demands honesty. You already know which direction you are leaning. Before these days even arrive, you can feel it. The area where you've been negotiating with yourself, the habit you've been excusing, the action you've been postponing, that is where the exposure will land. Not randomly, precisely. The universe does not test random weaknesses. It tests declared intentions. If you've been asking for growth, you will be given friction. If you've been asking for clarity, you will be given contrast. If you've been asking for elevation, you will be asked to release comfort. And that release will feel like loss before it feels like gain. That's why most fail. They interpret the discomfort as a sign to retreat instead of a signal to expand. But here's the final twist. The real pass is not visible during February 14th to 16. It becomes visible in the weeks after, when an opportunity appears and you are strangely ready, when a challenge arises and you are strangely calm, when others hesitate and you move. You will not connect it back immediately, but it will trace to these days. And if you do nothing different, if you stay unconscious inside the micro decisions, you will also feel the result later, in repetition. Same patterns, same frustrations, different month. So the question is not whether February 14-16 will change everything. It is whether you will, because the dates are neutral. The exposure is inevitable. The separation is subtle, and the lock will click either way. When it does, you won't hear it. But you will live inside the direction it sets. Now the only question left is this. When the pressure rises, when the almost moment appears, will you step forward or become another quiet example of potential that never fully activates?